No more formations? Craziness. Hey everyone, welcome to another 8th edition 40K rules discussion video. As always, my name is Jay, and in this video we'll be talking about formations. They're gone. And big models. Monster creatures, gargantuans, lords, the big guys. So we'll first start off with detachments. Now, as I said, formations are gone. Now, in 40K 7th edition, there were a lot of formations that were hard to keep track of, and it became overwhelming, the amount of information. Now, obviously, if you just focused on your own army, you'd be okay. And some of the rules got a little out of hand. And I think the goal is to make it much more streamlined for this next edition, at least to keep track of, because certain armies didn't have access to formations, and certain armies' formations were extremely overpowered. So now formations are gone, but they've been replaced with detachments. There are now a bunch of new detachments. Each one's have their own benefits and restrictions, and yeah, that's about it. And obviously different ones will be used by different armies depending on what kind of army you want to run and what armies you're drawn to. Like a Grey Knight army wouldn't run a lot of troop heavy choices probably, because they would be able to. Orcs would run a lot of troops, Eldar would run a lot of troops, so Tau would run a lot of troops, or shooting. So the first thing that we got to talk about is now there's 9 different unit types now in Warhammer 40K 8th edition. Of course, the normal HQ, elite, troop, fast attack, heavy support choice, dedicated transport, but the new one is flyer. Flyer is no longer a fast attack choice. It is now its own little category. So you have a limit on the amount of flyers that you can take specifically in an army. That's cool. Fortifications and Lords of War. That's cool. And as I said, each one comes with its own benefits and its own restrictions. The most common restriction is that all of them have to have the same, like keyword, like Tyrannid, Blood Angel, Space Marine, Imperium, for example. So here's a few examples of 3 of the new detachments that will be available in Warhammer 40K 8th edition. There's the Patrol Detachment, which is 1 to 2 HQs, 1 to 3 troops, 0 to 2 elites, 0 to 2 fast attack, 0 to 2 heavy supports, 0 to 2 flyers, and dedicated transports, 1 for each unit. Command benefits, none. Restrictions, all units must be from the same faction. Alright, makes sense. So this would be, if you want only a small, this could be like a Grey Knight army. If you want to run, a couple HQs, 1 squad of Terminators, a couple elites, like this could be a very much a space, elite army like Grey Knights. Then there's the Battalion Detachment. This could be Orcs, for example. 2 to 3 HQs, 3 to 6 troops, 0 to 6 elites, 0 to 3 fast attacks, 0 to 3 heavies, 0 to 2 flyers, dedicated transports, 1 for each squad. Restrictions, all units must be from the same faction. Command benefits, +3 command points. And I said these command points will be used in the game that you can possibly use for like re-rolling and stuff. It'll be released in a future video for sure. And there's the Brigade Detachment. This is, once again, if you want to run Orcs or Tyrannids in a Horde formation or Imperial Guard. 3 to 5 HQs, 6 to 12 troops, 3 to 8 elites, 3 to 5 fast attacks, 3 to 5 heavy support, 0 to 2 flyers. So this is a huge point game, or you're running tons of little squads or something, or like Orcs. You could do that with Orcs. It'd be pretty expensive. You could do it. Dedicated transports may include 1 for each other choice. And restrictions, all units must be from the same faction. Command benefits, +9 command points, which you can use during the game. So that's pretty crazy. So that's just a taste of what's available right now. So as I said, formations are gone, so it's going to be a little more simplistic. What do you think about that? Obviously, there's going to be some detachments in each army. Will kind of gravitate towards a specific detachment based on the fluff of the army, like, the feelings of the army. If you're running an elite army, like Grey Knights, you're not going to be running the Brigade Detachment. If you're playing Orcs, you're probably not running the Elite Detachment, right? Makes sense. So what do you think? Is it going to? I think it's going to simplify things. It's going to make things much more understandable for players, and especially for new players, because the amount of information in Warhammer 40K kind of got overwhelming with the amount of supplements and rule books. I'm okay with that. I think that'll be a good change, and a bunch of them. So there'll still be options on how to take your army, but every army will have access to these detachments, which makes it more fair and more fun. So I think it's pretty cool. The next thing we're going to talk about today is what they call large models. So large models, so monster creatures, gargantuans, land raiders. The big change in this one is there's no more such thing as gargantuans or or there's no more gargantuan monstrous creatures, or Imperial Knights are now just monstrous creatures equivalents basically. There's no more of those super heavies. So what happens now is that everyone has just a giant amount of wounds. So it'll still be very hard to kill. And what the thing is they've done is they've removed that ability, and I like this because there seemed to be a weird line that like a Wraith Knight could stomp a Dread Knight, or a Wraith Knight could stomp a Morkanaut or Gorkanaut. Didn't seem to make much sense to me, and it was kind of annoying. So what they did was they made everything more on a level playing field. So they've kind of removed that gray line, that invisible line between super heavy and heavy, and they've made things much more harder to kill, which is going to be pretty hard. So I'm pretty sure Wraith Knights are going to be the bane of everyone's existence still. Obviously they have removed D weapons and they've removed stomp and stuff, so that's going to be good. But just to give you some information on these. So as I said, basically everything's a monstrous creature these days, including tanks. They'll have wounds, they'll have toughness values, they'll have strength. I guess not tanks, but still. And they just have a giant amount of wounds. Yeah. So, for example, you'll see that the biggest Tyranid monsters, they say, have a dozen wounds, over a dozen wounds. Imperial Knights have 20 wounds. Gorkanaut has, like, I think, 18 wounds. So we're going to buy some D20s, man. We're going to have to definitely go out and buy some D20s just to keep track of the number of wounds on these guys. It's going to be funny. I have a few D20s, I think, so I'll have to use them for sure. And obviously, things you have to knock off the wounds. And what this is actually really good is it prevents the one-shot kills, right? The spamming of multi-meltas and meltas, for example. Like, I've lost my Morkanaut, my Gorkanaut, just due to one lucky shot. Right? Like, you can blow up these things, but just rolling, a pen and then a 6 with a Melta, right? Blowing up Morkanaut, blowing up Gorkanaut, blowing up Land Raider, and you invest all these points, and your opponent literally just drops right beside them and blows them up. And it happens, right? You have to kind of think about that. But they've kind of removed that. There's going to be a lot now because there's wounds. The amount of wounds like a Land Raider would have, a Morkanaut would have, a Gorkanaut would have, you can't one-shot kill these things. The odds are you won't be able to. There might be a couple guns that are so stupidly strong that you could, but I like that. You can't one-shot a Land Raider anymore, and I really like that. Keeps them much more survivable, makes them much more fun to bring in the game, So, yeah, that's really good. And they've given us a stat line of a Morkanaut, and this is the cool thing, so we'll talk about that today. They've kind of embraced special rules with how many wounds it has left. Now, a Morkanaut has 18 wounds, but its movement, its weapon skill, and its attacks are starred. So they all three depend on how many wounds it has left, so the more you whittle it down, the weaker it becomes. Its shooting, I think, is unaffected, but that's interesting. So its ballistic skill is 5 up, so 5 plus obviously because it's an orc. Strength 8, toughness 8. Now remember, toughness 8, anything can wound on a 6, so bolters could take this thing down. Pistols could take this thing down on 6s. 18 wounds, attack star, leadership 7, save 3 up. Cool, it's going to be survivable. Now, depending on how many wounds it has left, if it has 10 to 18 plus wounds, it is weapon skill 3, 3 plus, sorry, 4 attacks. Once you get it down to lower than 10 wounds, it changes. So between 5 and 9 wounds, movement is 6 inches, weapon skill is 4 plus, and it gets 3 attacks, and between 1 and 4 wounds, it is movement 4 inches, weapon skill 5 plus, 2 attacks. So obviously, the more you hurt it, the weaker it becomes. I think it's really cool. It's a cool dynamic. You just got to keep track of these numbers in your head, keep the D20s near it, and you'll be good. So 18 wounds at toughness 8, that's pretty going to be hard to kill. You're not going to be able to one-shot kill a Morkanaut by dropping behind it with some Melta. That's cool. You might build a lot of Melta, but still. So that's cool. I wonder if grav weapons are going to work in this one. Grav weapons could make a pretty good killing. Yeah. Grav weapons are still going to be pretty strong. But that's okay. So, yeah. So that's about it. So at 4 wounds left, it just gets, it's almost crippled, and it has stuff. So big stuff is going to be pretty scary, but obviously we're going to have to see You know, but the other weapons, I do like the fact that they removed super heavies and gargantuans. Those rules were just so powerful. Remove from play for D and remove from play from the stomp were really hard to deal with. Obviously, they could do it if you're running against a Death Star, but as we're going to discuss in a future video, Death Stars are kind of the thing of the past in a lot of ways. So it's going to make people have to rethink the way they want to play Warhammer 40K 8th edition. I like it. It's going to be a lot of tacticalness. So what do you think? What do you think of the rules that we discussed today? No more formations. Super heavies are gone. Gargantuans are gone. But now they're going to be like really hard to kill giant monster creatures. Cool stuff. 20 wound Wraith Knights. That's going to be fun to deal with. So stay tuned for more videos of Warhammer 40K 8th edition. Leave comments in the comment section down below. Let's create a discussion about this. As always, this is a free content video, so a huge thank you to all my Patreon subscribers. Link in the description below if you want to help support my Patreon campaign, because their names go by my head. So stay tuned for more videos about Warhammer 40K 8th edition. Until next time, this is Jay saying, happy painting.